Hey, everybody. Eric L. Donovan, the Mindset Disruption Strategist with our Kingdom Odyssey for Sunday, November 7th. Today's topic is this: do you have the horsepower? So, I don't know if you know this or not. I drive a 2007 Toyota Tundra with about 135,000 miles on it. Great truck. And still going. I mean, Toyota's, this is not a commercial for Toyota, but my experience has been they last a whole long time. But I have really been kind of getting the itch to get a sports car. And I've been looking around. I've looked at various different cars. I've kind of had my eyes on different ones. I was looking at Audi RS5, possibly. Um, and along the way, somehow I got introduced to taking a look at a Porsche. And so on Friday, Angel and I had to run to the city to get some things done, and I had a chance to go and take a look at a Porsche Panamera, which I've never looked at before. And really, as I sat in the car and really was just kind of getting a feel for it, and car shopping these days, I mean, there's not a whole lot of cars available, but started the car up, and it was just like you could feel it, right? You could feel the horsepower in the car. And Angel was like, yeah, that's what I like. And so, stay tuned. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, even if you wanted to buy one right now, they were telling us that to buy a new one, you'd have to order it. And then you're looking at anywhere from May to October of next year before you'd take delivery. And so I'm not buying a car today, but it just kind of led me to this idea of how important horsepower is. I mean, you think back to before, we had cars and we had horsepower and, they got around on buggies and horses were really fast, but it wasn't until we discovered engines and different way to move even faster that, not only could we drive, but they also figured out how to fly. And they figured, I mean, horsepower becomes a really important thing. We end up with the ability to travel incredible distances thanks to the discovery of horsepower. And I was reading in Jeremiah this week and ran across a scripture that I found very interesting that I wanted to share with you today that has to do with horsepower. And this is Jeremiah 12:5. And here's what it says: if you have raced with men on foot and they have worn you out, how can you compete with horses? You read it again. If you have raced with men on foot and they have worn you out, how can you compete with horses? And it got me to thinking about how many times in my life am I trying to do the things that I'm doing in my own power? Right? I'm trying to do them out of just what I can do rather than what out of God can do. And what I hear this saying as I look at this scripture closely is and how many of us in trying to do that are like, man, I'm just exhausted. I'm worn out from this whole journey. I'm exhausted from having to try and figure out how to do this on my own. And God is saying, I've got so much more for you. I want you to run with horses. I want you to run with horsepower. And we're worn out from running with manpower. And God's like, how can I even use you? If you've been completely worn out from running with man, how can I use you? And it was this, I really started thinking about this in my life. It's like, man, what if God's really looking for? I mean, I'm constantly asking myself, trying to get better. It's like, what might be possible for me? What might be possible if I thought about this or did this? And it was like, no, what might be possible if God? Possible if God was calling you to XYZ? What might be possible if God was the one who was giving you the instructions instead of you? We're reaching the end of 2021. It's that time when a lot of us sit down and think about setting our goals. What am I going to do next year? How am I going to go? What if you plan next year with horsepower instead of manpower? What if instead of asking the questions of what you wanted to do with your body, you took some time to just pray and ask God what he would have you do? What he would have you do with this tool that he's given to you? What if instead of planning and these are great efforts, right? I'm going to read through I'm going to do a devotional on this and this and this. Rather than that, what if you committed to asking God what he would have you do during the next year for him and with him? What if instead of planning family vacations and planning everything else we were going to do, we took a step back and said, God, how would you have me steward my family? What would you call us to do in this next season? And similarly, inside of our businesses, instead of just laying out and saying, I'm going to go increase sales and I'm going to go do this, what if God's calling you to a different business than you've ever imagined? What if he's calling you to a different market? What if he's calling you to a place, but you simply haven't stopped to ask? You're so busy running on manpower that you're worn out. God's like, no, I need you running off of horsepower. And just like how horsepower changed the trajectory of what everything that was possible. Again, we talked about this flight, cars, even speeds that we can drive at right now, completely unimaginable without the extension of beyond horsepower. And you're exhausted running off of manpower. And what if that's what God's looking for in this new year? Are you willing to be open to it? Are you willing to just take a step back and totally surrender? Because that's what it's going to require. It's going to require us going, you know what? I know I can't do this on my own. And I know that I'm going to need God's assistance. And that's a hard place to be sometimes because we have to give up. You have to surrender total control. You have to realize that when hard times come or obstacles come, that may be exactly part of God's plan, and you've just got to push through. And you may think you have a better idea, but how do you take a step back and go, okay? And I'm not telling you guys this is easy. I mean, there have been seasons in my life where I've been just completely exhausted. And this is what my prayer is daily is, God, what do you have for me? Is it easy? No. The thing is, it's simple, not easy, simple. And so that's just what I'd ask you today as we finish up 2021, as we look at going into 2022, what might be possible if you committed 2022 to running off of horsepower? And so that's what I want you to type up inside of this message, those types of things. What would you do? What might be possible if you ran off of horsepower and manpower? And what might you be giving up in a good way, right? As I think about 2022, what I would be giving up is just this idea that I have to be in control, or that and also that God doesn't have a better plan for me, right? I mean, you got to give up this idea. God doesn't have a better plan than I can come up with. You got to give up this idea that your plans are better than God. That's something I've got to give up, right? What about you? The other thing is what might be possible. Golly, how cool to just kind of surrender to what God might make possible in the coming year. As always, I thank you so much for being with me. Think about this all this week. And as we move forward, what would happen if you just decide to stop running off of manpower and stopped running off of horsepower? What might change today? What might change tomorrow? And what kind of impact might you make for eternity off of God's horsepower? Thank you so much for being with me. God bless you. Have a great day.